It was one of his last public appearances. Fidel Castro, then 85, reappeared in front of the cameras in 2012 to welcome Pope Benedict XVI to Cuba. The frail elderly man was a far cry from the once tough guerrilla fighter who took the world to the brink of nuclear conflict 50 years earlier. Fidel Castro is said to have spent his happiest years in the mountains of the Sierra Maestra in Cuba. That's where he cultivated his image as military chief and grew his iconic beard. Back then, he was leader to only a handful of leftist guerrillas, but just 2 years later, his forces overthrew the notoriously corrupt and decadent US-backed regime of President Batista. On the 8th of January 1959, he received a triumphant welcome in Havana. After being snubbed by then US President Dwight Eisenhower, he became one of the Soviet Union's staunchest allies. In 1961, he crushed an American-backed rebellion in the Bay of Pigs. The following year, the Cuban Missile Crisis saw Soviet ballistic missiles pointing at the United States from its shores. The crisis was defused, but Castro had become Washington's #1 enemy.
Será la victoria. Patria o muerte. Venceremos.
The Cuban leader became a symbol of the struggle against imperialism across the world and remained convinced of his duty to export his ideology abroad. Discounting the world's monarchies, Castro holds the record for the longest time in power, 49 years, during which he outlived 11 American administrations. For his people, he was simply Fidel, a charismatic president, omnipresent, if prone to rather long speeches. A president who strived to provide the best education and health systems in the region. For his opponents, he was a dictator without mercy, a man who imprisoned thousands. Castro survived the collapse of the Soviet Union and its withdrawal of financial support. In the end, he even found new allies, including Hugo Chavez, the late Venezuelan president, to whom Cuba owes its economic survival. Fidel Castro had practically disappeared from the lives of ordinary Cubans since July 2006. Sick and weakened by his declining health, he had resigned as head of Cuba's Communist Party, ceding power to his brother Raúl. A hard pill to swallow. As for Fidel, true revolutionaries never retire.